Today on Trial Watch, an exclusive interview with a man fighting a landmark custody battle. When a couple divorces, who gets possession of their frozen embryos?
I don't think that she has the right to still try to achieve to have a child from me after we've been divorced and separated for so long.
The law and Liz Taylor. She may not be making movies, but she's making legal history.
I think that the Liz Taylor is probably the best thing that happened to lawyers since the Magna Carta.
All this and more today on Trial Watch. Real people, real trials.
Hello, everyone. I'm Rob Weller. With me, co-anchor and attorney Lisa Specht.
Hello. Welcome to Trial Watch.
Well, her grandfather was a Detroit cop. Her father was a Detroit cop. Her husband was a Detroit cop. And as one of the first women to wear a badge in Detroit, Carol earned 12 commendations and proved she was tough enough to fight the bad guys, even when they turned out to be her fellow cops.
I had a couple of guys tell me, well, hey, your name is written on the men's room wall with your phone number. And I would say things like, well, I put it up there and I haven't got any phone calls left, just because I felt that if I let them see that they weren't bothering me, that they would leave me alone.
But they didn't. In 1985, Carol was pregnant with her daughter. Her co-workers at the precinct threw her a baby shower. The party quickly deteriorated into a series of crude sexual jokes.
Within an hour and a half of our being there, the joke gets extended from these glasses that they wore in, and instead of having rubber noses on them, they had rubber penises, and many of them took these glasses with the penis on them and were forcing them into some of the policewomen's faces and each other's faces. And I realized then that it was time to leave my own baby shower.
After 13 years on the force, Carol decided that enough was enough. She filed suit against the police department, alleging sexual harassment. For 3 weeks in 1989, she relived much of her career in a Detroit courtroom. She told the jury that the harassment was constant. One incident happened when Carol was working the streets with her shift lieutenant. She alleges that under the pretext of having to drop something at his house, he tried to lure her into a compromising situation. She quickly suggested they leave.
Now suddenly he's helping me on with my jacket. And then he grabbed me and put his tongue in my mouth and was kissing me and telling me he wanted to have a thing with me. And I tried to brush him off as best I could without hurting his feelings, because we are dealing with a lot of fragile egos. But afterwards, when we got back to the station, and he did immediately take me back, he began to complain about my work and going to my other supervisors and telling them that I was doing things improperly.
Carol tried to complain to her supervisors, but her protests fell on deaf ears. Finally, the proverbial straw that broke the camel's back. Carol alleges that her name turned up again on the men's room wall, this time in connection with a specific sexual act. Carol claims her supervisor told her if it was him, he'd just wipe it off the wall and forget about it.
I said, no, I've been forgetting about it for too long. I was becoming angry about it because just, you know, sometimes you have to stand up for yourself, and I guess I do that a lot, and it gets me into trouble.
Carol went home and stayed there. Her husband, Lynn, who was also a cop, tried to intervene on her behalf.
Went in and talked to the commander about it, and she had already done the same thing, but he seemed to think that if I thought it was a problem, then it must be a problem. And actually, I think he should have thought it was a problem when she felt it was a problem.
I'm almost ashamed to admit it now, although I really don't think people should be, but I had a nervous breakdown over the situation.
Several times, Carol diligently attempted to put her uniform on and go back to work.
Finally, made the third attempt to go to work. I broke down crying at the door because I knew I couldn't go back there. And this was my livelihood. I mean, this wasn't some frivolous thing that I did because I had nothing better to do. Hi, Jerry.
Hi.
How are you?
Good to see you.
Carol's lawyer, Gerald Portney, claimed that the harassment she suffered had its roots at the top of the department.
Department from the top, at least at the very top and down, is not handling this situation the way it should be handled. Other than disseminating policy that the police department does not condone sexual harassment or sexual conduct in the workplace, which they did, I have not found anything in my examination of officers that indicates that the department is taking any really serious effort to try to stop this sort of thing.
On the strength of the evidence and her testimony, Carol won the courtroom battle. After deliberating for less than an hour, the jury awarded her $157,000. But the city is appealing, and Carol hasn't seen a dime. Despite all that's happened, she clearly misses being a cop.
Yeah, I do. I have never one day ever missed the environment, but I really do miss that job. I was good at it, and I liked doing it. And I think that it's really unfortunate that the police department is losing good officers because they're not addressing a problem.
But Carol isn't alone in her complaints against the department. In all, 7 former policewomen have sued the city for sexual harassment and have won awards totaling millions of dollars.
Well, still to come, you've seen Liz Taylor in front of the camera. Now, see her in front of the judge. They're called everything from property to cryo babies to the preborn. When doctors freeze embryos to help couples overcome infertility, no one knows for sure just what to call them. Mary Sue and J.R. Davis call them miracles, wonders of science that would help them have their very own baby.
But the strains of infertility destroyed their 10-year marriage, and now they're fighting over custody of those 7 frozen embryos.
Because I don't think anybody could be prepared for this. I fell in love with JR and I followed my heart and started to make a life with him, but there is no preparation for anything like this.
Nothing could have ever prepared J.R. Davis and his second wife, Brenda, for what was about to happen. J.R.'s life had been in constant turmoil and in the media spotlight ever since he divorced his first wife, Mary Sue Stowe. What had begun as an amicable split turned into an ugly battle over who should get their frozen embryos. Earlier in their marriage, J.R. and Mary had entered an in vitro fertilization program after discovering they couldn't have children. But at the time of their divorce, 7 of their frozen embryos were still in storage, waiting to be implanted. Since the Davises never imagined their marriage would fail, they'd made no plans for the custody of those embryos.
I think that they should be allowed to dissolve. I think since I do not consider them life, they're only genetic material, and they're only a couple of days old as being fertilized. I think that that they should just allow them to dissolve.
But a trial judge initially granted custody to Mary Sue because she planned to use them to get pregnant rather than J.R., who wanted the embryos destroyed.
I'm thrilled. It's definitely what I wanted.
But J.R., a product of a broken home, didn't want his potential child to be raised by a single mother, let alone his ex-wife.
I don't think that she has the right to still try to achieve to have a child from me after we've been divorced and separated for so long. I can't imagine the logic of why she would want to even do that.
I'm quite capable of raising a child by myself, so I don't think he has to worry about that.
He knows what she went through in not just in the surgeries, but all the attempts, all the heartache that it caused Mary in trying to become pregnant. And for him to say he doesn't understand why she has such an attachment to these embryos, why she has such an attachment to the potential life that she has created, well, if he doesn't understand that, then I guess that's his problem.
J.R. still wanted the embryos destroyed. He took his case to the Tennessee Court of Appeals. But during the trial, Mary Sue did a complete turnaround. Now she wanted to donate the embryos to complete strangers. J.R. was shocked. Since there'd never been a case like this, he had no way of knowing what could happen next.
It would force him, actually, in reality, to live with the anxiety of a lifetime of wondering if he is a parent. If wondering if someday, 15, 20 years in the future, somebody might come up and tug on his sleeve and say, I understand you're Junior Lewis Davis. I think maybe you're my father.
Under current law, the genetic parents are financially responsible for the children, and so even if the Davis embryo was given to someone else, there might be a suit against Junior Lewis Davis to get money for raising the child.
This time, the judge granted joint custody of the embryos.
A joint custody situation really is a win for the husband because he's the one who doesn't want the embryos brought to term. The wife does, and so by requiring the agreement of both of them, it means that the pregnancy will never go forward.
J.R. and Mary Sue haven't been able to settle the dispute, so now Mary Sue is begging the Tennessee Supreme Court to make the decision.
It's gotten to the point at this stage that her intentions are to donate them, I don't think that that has priority over my wishes at this point. Like if she could, just to sit back and wonder, ask herself why, if she does not want to use these embryos, why, seriously, why are you trying to force parenthood on me?
Mary Sue has since remarried, but she is still determined to keep those embryos alive.
I know that there are couples out there that are childless, and this may be a chance for them to have a child by using what is a part of myself and her, but I don't think that she has the right to impose that on me. And I would like to ask her to let it go.
In April, the case goes before the Tennessee Supreme Court, but it's not likely to end there. This is a legal debate that could go on and on.
Well, just ahead, the police say she's a criminal. She claims she's just addicted to money.
Later on Trial Watch, Liz and the law. If you thought Liz Taylor's legal battles were over when she and her ex ended their passion perfume battle, think again.
Well, judges have heard some pretty strange excuses in their courtrooms, but have you ever heard the "I'm not guilty of embezzlement because I'm addicted to money" defense? Meet Deborah Jean Williams in prison.
I didn't come to Bakersfield and seek out some place to rip off.
But that's exactly what Deborah did. Just months after she went to work for this tobacco wholesaler, she was convicted of embezzlement to the tune of $500,000.
I bought 2 cars, 2 Porsches, a boat, and went on a trip.
She told a local reporter she was addicted to money.
I told him because it was just so easy to take it, and you know, and he was asking me, well, did you take it for drugs? Were you addicted to some drugs? And I said, no, I guess I was just addicted to the money.
But that wasn't the first time Deborah stole from her employer. By the time she got to Bakersfield, her addiction was already out of control.
I was about 19 years old. I worked for a company in Merced, California, and they were a crop dusting company, and I did steal about $9,900 from them.
Deborah says she stole money for the same reason some people climb mountains.
I just took it because basically it was there. I don't have a reason, and that's a sad state of affairs when you don't have a reason for doing something.
After serving more than a year in prison, you'd think Deborah would have a reason to stop stealing. But her very first job when she was released from jail was for Dwight Trucking, where $200,000 suddenly disappeared from the company checking account.
I found Dwight Trucking checks going to her and her husband's bank accounts. There was no way that she could not have known that this was happening.
Williams and her husband lived in this nice house in Bakersfield, and they lived very well indeed. Besides expensive cars, boats, and luxury vacations, Deborah bought gold and diamond jewelry, a sophisticated computer system, and a car for her mother.
They had a brand new spa that they put in the backyard, just had a lot of things that, a lot of material items that, things that I don't have. You know.
Deborah says she pleaded guilty on the advice of her attorney. Now she's suing that lawyer, claiming the advice was bad. However, she expected the result.
I feel that if you do something wrong, there's always a point that you're going to get caught. And I just knew I was going to get caught. It was a matter of time.
Deborah Jean is appealing her conviction, claiming her lawyer was inadequate because he didn't use the "I'm not guilty of embezzlement because I'm addicted to money" defense.
Well, next on Trial Watch, we'll tell you why Liz Taylor's real life is more dramatic than any movie. From her first divorce case in 1951 to her recent drug abuse scandal, Elizabeth Taylor has repeatedly been at the center of legal firestorms. The cast of extras includes famous actors, powerful politicians, and now some of the most prominent physicians in America.
No!
A jubilant Liz Taylor after her last public performance. The actress, who's fascinated us for decades, has been taking center stage in a string of real courtroom battles. In fact, Liz's name is becoming more synonymous with lawsuits than leading lady.
I think that Liz Taylor is probably the best thing that happened to lawyers since the Magna Carta. She may not be a queen in the movies anymore, but she's certainly a queen of the courtroom at this point.
Recently, this queen of the courtroom settled a well-publicized suit filed against her by her former lover, Henry Weinberg, over the rights to her passion perfume. In 1975, Weinberg made a passionate play towards Taylor, who in return granted him rights to her name in connection with any cosmetics or perfume.
Weinberg got her signature on an agreement giving him certain rights to cosmetics with Liz's name on them, and incidentally, that agreement was witnessed by Richard Burton. It got a little more complicated in that Weinberg said that the scent they used was a scent he had made up and gave Liz for her birthday.
During the pretrial, both Weinberg and Taylor threatened to expose the other's sexual secrets. And so before the case got really ugly, both decided to settle out of court for an undisclosed amount.
It means that I'm vindicated, and that it proves that the perfume, Passion, is something that I worked on for a year and a half with the Cheeseboro Ponds people, with their chemists. It has nothing to do with anything to do with Mr. Weinberg.
Although the terms of the settlement are completely confidential, I'm very pleased and satisfied with the resolution of this lawsuit that has taken a long time to come to an end.
But for litigious Liz, this wasn't the end of her courtroom drama. Now she's slapping a $20 million libel suit against the National Enquirer for 2 stories they printed about her last summer while she was hospitalized for viral pneumonia.
The first was the accusation by a journalist that she had lupus, which is a disfiguring disease. The second was that she was drinking while in the hospital room.
I don't think she's going to do very well. That's my gut feeling. Furthermore, one of the problems about suing for defamation or libel or slander is you don't let the thing go away. When you sue, well, you open up that whole nightmare again.
The basis of her suit is that this is going to damage her career, which is ludicrous, and she has no career anymore, her career being lawsuits.
Thank you.
Liz's next lawsuit could end the careers of 3 prominent physicians. The Medical Board of California is trying to pull the licenses of Dr. William Skinner, Dr. Michael Roth, and Dr. Michael Gottlieb for over-prescribing mind-numbing amounts of drugs to perennial patient Liz.
They were beyond belief. They were beyond anything that the human mind can conjure. I mean, her daily intake of drugs, the variety of drugs, the volume of drugs.
But she fought the back problem, and she became dependent on drugs. And Dr. Gottlieb was treating her both for the back problem and for the dependency. And what else can a physician do but do his best?
Recently, I have been ill, but now I am getting better. And I know that I will recover.
Liz Taylor is basically the victim in this whole situation, and she will not benefit from either ruling from the medical authorities except in one way. She might very well have a valid lawsuit in medical malpractice. That's an area which I don't think she's gotten into in her rather litigious career.
And what a career it's been, not to mention her 6 divorces, 2 from Richard Burton. In fact, when they first met on the set of Cleopatra, Burton and Taylor got tangled up in a lawsuit. A theater company opposed their steamy love affair on the set, while Liz was still married to actor Eddie Fisher.
They were sued by a theater company for violation of what was known as the ethics code, which was part of the contract that both of them had signed.
The theater company claimed Miss Taylor's actions were immoral, but it lost its case.
The irony is that everybody wanted to see the movie not because it was a good movie, it was a terrible movie, Cleopatra, but only because it starred these 2 scandalous figures, Richard Burton and Elizabeth Taylor.
So in her own way, Liz Taylor has managed to remain in the spotlight and in the public eye.
I guess I'm a survivor.
Does Liz Taylor have the influence to get around the law? Well, recently, she had her ex-husband, Senator John Warner of Virginia, steer a bill through Congress that only applied to one person, her son, actor Michael Wilding. The bill's passage allows him to live in America, even though he was convicted of drug charges and has renounced his U.S. citizenship. Now, here's our own attorney, Lisa Specht, with today's Snap Judgment.
Here it is. Peter Maxwell owned a small company in Chino, California, and he paid himself a salary. While he was operating a company mixing device, a bolt snagged his sweater and pulled him into the machinery, causing injuries. You know that expression, so sue me? Well, that's exactly what Maxwell did. Peter Maxwell, the employee, hired a lawyer to sue Peter Maxwell, the employer. That Peter Maxwell hired an attorney to defend the company. Confused yet? Well, I am. The question is, was Peter Maxwell allowed to sue himself? And if so, who won? We'll have the answer right after this.
In today's Snap Judgment, we have a man trying to sue himself. So can Peter Maxwell, the employee, sue Peter Maxwell, the employer?
The quick answer to that, Rob, is yes, he can. But the case actually never went to the jury. Peter Maxwell's attorney settled out of court with Peter Maxwell's other attorney. Maxwell, the boss, agreed that he was negligent in allowing a dangerous bolt to protrude from a machine, and Maxwell, the employee, agreed to accept $122,000 in compensation, all of which was tax-free, of course, because you don't have to pay taxes on personal injury settlements. And Maxwell, the employer, got to deduct the money from his corporate income taxes as a legitimate business expense, so everybody benefited from that one.
Indeed.
And that's about it for today.
All right, join us again tomorrow for Trial Watch. Real people, real trials.